The night I graduated valedictorian, I thought my parents were proud of me. We were standing in the grand foyer of the Whitmore estate, marble floors, chandeliers dripping crystal, and my name echoing in the speeches of senators and judges. Everyone said I was the future of the Whitmore family, that I made Evelyn and Thomas proud, that I was proof even adopted children could be raised into greatness. I wore white, my mother insisted. Symbolic, she said, smoothing the sleeves. You're our angel, but angels don't get buried alive. It started with a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. After the celebration, I went to grab my diploma from the parlor, left it by the fireplace. That's when I heard my father's voice, low, sharp, and not meant for guests. She leaves tonight. I froze behind the wall. My mother answered, her voice cool as ever. The documents are signed, guardianship revoked, death certificate is already in the system. No one will question it. Silence. Then, we had to get her off the will before the trust closes. Caleb is the blood heir. It's time we move on. My diploma slipped from my fingers. I couldn't feel my legs. Death certificate? I stumbled into the room, heart slamming against my ribs. What are you talking about? They didn't flinch, not even a flicker of guilt. My father, Senator Thomas Whitmore, turned to me like I was just another inconvenient political problem. Lana, he said, you were never meant to stay. My mother stepped forward, adjusting the diamond brooch on her collar like she was bored. You were adopted for optics. The campaign needed a family. You played your part. I'm your daughter, I whispered. You raised me. You were an arrangement, she said. We provided. You performed. That's over now. I couldn't breathe. You told the court I was dead? Missing. Presumed dead. It's cleaner, my father replied. You'll understand in time. The estate must stay in the family. I stared at them, mouth open. You told people I was dead just to give Caleb everything? Caleb is blood. You were borrowed. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loudly. No screaming. No sobbing. Just a clean, surgical split from everything I believed was true. You planned this. After I got into Duke. After I won state. You were impressive, my mother said simply. But that doesn't make you blood. She walked past me, heels clicking on the marble. Your room will be cleared by morning. They turned off the lights as they left me there. I walked up the stairs one last time, not as a daughter, not as a Whitmore, but as a ghost. I didn't take much. Just my backpack, my birth certificate, my adoption papers, and $47 from my emergency stash hidden inside a hollowed-out calculus textbook. When I passed the family portrait in the hallway, I paused. My face smiled up at me in that photo. But I realized it was always an illusion. The whole frame was a lie. I didn't cry when I stepped outside into the humid Georgia night. I didn't even say goodbye, because Lana Whitmore died that night, but I didn't. I didn't look back. Not when I crossed the gates, not when the dog started barking behind me, not when the warm glow of the Whitmore mansion faded into the dark. My shoes blistered my feet before I even hit the edge of town. I made it to the Greyhound station just past 2 a.m. A one-way ticket to Chicago cost $39. That left me with $8 and a folded birth certificate with creases like scar tissue. The driver didn't ask questions, and I wouldn't have answered them if he had. The ride took 18 hours. I stared out the window the whole time. No texts. No missed calls. Nothing. It was as if I had never existed. By nightfall, I was standing in a city that didn't know me, didn't care about me, and didn't ask me to be anyone but cold, quiet, and invisible. For the first week, I slept in the Ma's women's bathroom at Union Station. The janitor never caught me, but once, a woman in heels saw me curled against the wall. She paused, lowered her lipstick mid-swipe, and said, "You ain't from around here." Don't die, stupid. I didn't plan to, but I didn't plan to survive like this either. By day, I wandered. At night, I found corners, behind dumpsters, in stairwells. There were moments, like when it snowed in April, when I almost believed my parents were right, that I was disposable, that maybe I was a ghost, until I met Nadine. She found me at the soup kitchen on 49th and Halstead, staring too long at a bulletin board that offered nothing but disappointment. "You lost, or just lost?" "Hope?" she asked, handing me a paper plate with overcooked beans and rice. I didn't answer, but I came back the next day, and the day after that. Nadine used to be a social worker. She said she could spot a discarded daughter from a block away. She let me help clean the floors in exchange for a cot behind the storage room. Then she pulled strings and got me a job cleaning offices in a law firm downtown. "You keep your head down and eyes open," she told me, stuffing gloves in my hands. "Rich people leave footprints in their trash. Learn where they walk." That's how it started. I scrubbed bathrooms while corporate attorneys signed million-dollar deals. I emptied recycling bins filled with shredded trust documents. And I listened. Every night, I'd write what I overheard in a little red notebook: trust structures, shell companies, beneficiary loopholes. It was like learning a new language, one designed to protect the rich from the truth. And I wrote something else, too. Over and over. At the top of every page, "Lana Whitmore is dead. Long live Alana West." That was the name I chose, the name I would build from. Because if they could erase me with a forged document, then I would rise with one too. And this time, I wouldn't just take what was mine. I'd take back everything they thought I'd never touch again. By month 3, I could predict which partners would leave their contracts face up on their desks. By month 6, I knew which paralegals were having affairs with which attorneys. And by the end of year 1, I could draft a living trust better than half the interns. I never asked for help. I never used the Whitmore name. I was just Alana West, the quiet girl who never missed a shift and never said too much. But I watched, and I learned. Nadine used to say, "Survival is a skill, but revenge is architecture." So I built. It started small, helping the janitor's cousin file for emergency guardianship over her disabled mother. Then I helped a woman from the shelter navigate probate court after her abusive husband died without a will. People started calling me before they called lawyers. They came with tear-stained folders and stories of families who cut them out, just like mine had. Didn't advertise. I didn't post online, but word spread. And soon, I wasn't just surviving, I was solving. By 24, I opened a consulting firm out of a second-floor walk-up in Bronzeville, West Trust Consulting, discreet estate structuring and trust advocacy. I hired women like me, disowned daughters, overqualified immigrants, former paralegals passed over for promotion. We didn't look like power, but we were the ones who made sure your family name didn't kill you slowly. And while Caleb Whitmore was out in Atlanta posting photos of his luxury car collection and botching real estate flips, I was building silent wealth. I helped a divorced black mother secure full rights to her late ex-husband's pension against 3 white Southern brothers with big firm lawyers. I helped a terminally ill drag performer make sure her family couldn't touch her savings, donated it all to LGBTQ shelters across the state. Every time I watched someone reclaim what was stolen from them, I felt something settle in me, something deeper than anger. It was clarity. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. One of my clients, Mr. Navarro, died suddenly of a stroke. He was a quiet man, wore tweed, tipped in exact change. Turned out he was worth $72 million and left 30% of it to my firm as management fee in perpetuity. Just like that, West Trust was no longer scrappy. It was elite. I incorporated in Delaware, opened a discreet office in D.C. under a shell name, started receiving quiet inquiries from politicians' wives, estranged heirs, people like my parents, only smarter. I never used my real photo on any website, never went public. But one name kept popping up in conversation, again and again: Whitmore Estate Holdings. They were struggling. One partner had embezzled funds. Another was under federal investigation. And Caleb, the golden heir, was hemorrhaging money through failed LLCs and vanity ventures. And then I saw it, a notice in a private estate law forum. Seeking external consultants for urgent trust restructuring. Whitmore Estate, Savannah, GA. They didn't know who I was, but I knew exactly who they were. That night, I poured myself a glass of scotch I couldn't afford 5 years ago, sat at my desk, and opened a blank manila folder. On the tab, I wrote, Project Lazarus. Because the Whitmores buried a girl named Lana, and they were about to meet the woman who rose from her grave. The Whitmore estate hadn't changed. Same wrought iron gates, same limestone columns, same smell of money and rotting roses. But this time, I didn't walk through the servants' entrance. A black SUV pulled into the circular drive. A chauffeur opened the door. I stepped out in a tailored navy suit, 4-inch heels, and a briefcase that held enough paper to burn their entire legacy to the ground. Inside, the air conditioning hummed like static. A young intern with trembling hands greeted me. Ms. West, she said, eyes flicking over the initials on my briefcase. The board is waiting. I walked down the hall where I used to carry piano books, past the study where Evelyn slapped my hand for eating too fast, past the family portrait that no longer included me. The double doors opened, and there they were. Senator Thomas Whitmore, still upright, still arrogant, Evelyn Whitmore, still perfectly coiffed, lips tight as ever, and Caleb, the golden nephew. Sitting in a chair too big for him, scrolling through his phone like the room didn't matter. My father, no, the man who raised me, stood. Ms. West, thank you for coming. I shook his hand. His grip faltered. Just a second. But enough. I understand you've reviewed our trust portfolio, he said. Yes, I replied, setting down my briefcase. But before we begin, I clicked it open, pulled out 3 documents, laid them on the table. Let's talk about how you forged a death certificate. The silence that followed was the most honest sound that House had ever heard. Evelyn's fingers froze mid-tap on her pearls. Caleb looked up. What the hell is this? I slid the second paper toward them. My adoption records. Lana Evelyn Whitmore, adopted in 2005. Officially declared missing in 2021. Cause of disappearance, unknown. Declared deceased after 12 months. Convenient. My father's voice dropped half an octave. Who are you? I smiled. Let me help. You, Senator. I pulled out the third document, a transfer of ownership. Whitmore Estate Holdings, 51% stake, now belonging to West Trust Corporate Group. Signed, notarized, and fully legal. I'm the woman you buried, and the one who bought your grave. Caleb stood, chair scraping the hardwood. You can't. Just walk in here. I already did. I turned to Evelyn. Tell me, Mother, how long did you practice that line? You were adopted for optics. You said it like you'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Her mouth opened. Closed. Alana, Thomas said. Listen. I'm not here to listen. I'm here to restructure. I stood and walked to the window. Your trust is bleeding. Your assets are frozen under investigation, and your heir, I looked at Caleb, is under federal scrutiny for wire fraud. Caleb paled. I turned back. You need saving, again, but this time I named the terms. Thomas clenched his jaw. What do you want? 3 things. I held up a finger. 1. Caleb is removed from all positions of power permanently. No titles, no access, no fallback funding. His face turned red. This is a shakedown. It's an audit. 2nd finger. 2. Both of you retire. Effective immediately. No legacy projects, no political rebounds. You go quietly. My father looked like he'd swallowed gravel. 3rd, I said, voice cold as ice. You release a public statement acknowledging that Lana Whitmore was unjustly removed from the family, and that your estate would not exist today without her. Evelyn finally spoke. Her voice cracked. You want us to apologize? No. I want you to admit it. You didn't just lose your daughter. You lost your future. I gathered the papers and clicked the briefcase shut. You'll sign everything. By Monday. Or I pull my capital, Notify federal investigators about a decade's worth of questionable accounting and let this empire rot. Caleb sat back down, stunned. My father stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Maybe he was, because Lana Whitmore died at his hands, but the woman in front of him? She didn't want his love. She wanted his surrender. The papers were signed by Monday. They didn't call, didn't email, didn't ask how I managed to learn the laws they once used to erase me. They knew better. Caleb vanished from the board. Evelyn and Thomas released a 3-paragraph statement. Cold, legal, stripped of names, but the subtext was clear. They had been dethroned by the ghost of a daughter they thought long buried. I didn't attend the press conference. I had something more important to do. 3 months later, I stood in the garden behind the estate. The rose bushes had withered, the fountain was dry, but the marble bench still stood beneath the sycamore tree, my favorite reading spot as a child. We were opening a foundation, the Whitmore West Trust, funding legal aid for disowned daughters, LGBTQ youth, estranged heirs, people like me, discarded, but not destroyed. Nadine was there, standing beside me in a lavender dress and 2 big sunglasses. She squeezed my hand. You did it, baby. No, I said, eyes on the new plaque. I undid it. The bronze plate gleamed under the morning sun. In memory of the children they tried to erase, and the legacy they couldn't. I turned away, as reporters clicked their cameras, because this was never about headlines. It was about walking back into the place they told me I didn't belong, and leaving behind something they couldn't control. Lana Whitmore is gone, but her name, it funds empires now.